Shem Yahweh Shai, double honors to the elders and apostles of Jim who were well, and likewise elders. All praises to the Most High Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. All will in this video is edifying. I was watching a video by the elder Dawada, and he was talking about how they're using QR codes in, I believe, Canada. You can enter, but you can't leave without the QR code. And it got me thinking about how Esau has set up his system because he's got these laws where, in an emergency, he can enact these laws and these powers, right? Which through the spirit we understand that that's what he's gonna do, to bring in his quote unquote NWO, because by law he's not allowed to do that. So what he has to do is he has to create a crisis, right? And then he has to use these laws to then enact those laws, and it's basically like a perpetual crisis. And once the laws are enacted and the people have been acclimatized, for lack of a better word, to the new state of things, then he's gonna keep those laws in place. The same thing with the COVID thing. I've seen people go get booster jabs even though they're not mandatory anymore. I'm gonna just start at this. I'm gonna skip over a bit. It says the sorts of measures typically defined as emergency powers first found expression in the United Kingdom through the 1914 Defence of the Realm Act. This was the First World War. The 1920 Emergencies Act and the 1939 War Powers Act. These acts drew substantial lineage from the concept of martial law, right? So basically, these laws can stop the citizens of that country from being able to do certain things, both at home and in the Britain's colonial territories, exercised through the royal prerogatives of the crown. What's prerogative? Basically, your whim, what you feel like doing. Is up to the crown what it feels is right and what's wrong. This heritage is not incidental. Throughout history, emergency powers have most often been invoked in response to wars or the threat of war. So, yeah, that's that. And then I looked up, this on Wikipedia. It says Public Health Controls of Disease Act 1984 is a piece of legislation for England and Wales which requires physicians to notify a proper officer of the local authority or any persons deemed to be suffering from notable disease. So all they need to do is make somebody suffer from a disease and they can act these powers, right? So the act has been discussed as a means to detain individuals with tuberculosis to prevent the spread of disease in the UK. Now they can create another so-called disease and use these laws to basically what's the word, acquire their will, for lack of a better term, right? They did this with the COVID-19, so they can kind of switch up, and put this disease in for this law and use this law to for their own end, right? Thing is that there's another one here. It says Emergency Powers Defense Act 1939, and this was, we know, at the beginning of the World War II, right? It says the Emergency Powers Defense Act 1939 was emergency legislation passed just prior to the outbreak of World War II by the Parliament of the United Kingdom to enable British government to take up emergency powers to prosecute the war effectively. So what was that? They come with rationing, being able to hang people for treason and stuff like that. Because once a crisis happens, you now have all these emergency powers at your will to be able to create these situations. And that's how Esau's gonna come with it, because even though he's a devil, he does it through he likes to make it seem as if what he's doing is righteous. So he'll create the events and the circumstances to be able to basically justify himself. Oh, well, we're not doing this because we want to, we're doing this because we have to, kind of thing, to kind of pacify the people, even though the people, for the most part, a lot of them aren't really falling for it anymore. It contained clauses giving the government wide powers to create defense regulations by order in council. So, a bunch of old, small penis Edomites sit in a locked, dark room with a bunch of demons making up laws. These regulations govern almost every aspect of everyday life in the country during the war. Two offences under the regulations, forcing, safeguards, and looting, were punishable with death. Following the conclusion of the war, the 1939 Act was repealed, with the individual regulations gradually following suit. As of 2023, at least one regulation relating to the use of service personnel to perform agricultural and other urgent work of national importance remains in force. And the elder, Dawada, he brought that in, which is why you have all these situations with the farmers and stuff like that, because they one of those acts of that law basically means that they have these laws which pertaining to things with agricultural, so they can basically come in, say they need to test your animal, you need to register your animal and all this other stuff, which is what he was going into. And this is neither here or there, but it's just to show you what Esau's been doing. He's been laying the trap work. This is Bovine TV. What do mandatory testing for cattle movements mean to you? As of 1st August 2023, mandatory post-movement testing came into effect for cattle moving into herds in the annual surveillance testing parts of the edge area from areas of higher tuberculosis risk. Find out more about what this might mean for your farm. Let me just bring out a scripture quick. This is Proverbs 17:11. An evil man seeketh only rebellion, therefore a cruel messenger shall be sent unto him. So these Edomites, right? They're cruel masters, man. All they want is problems, really. You see that thing, that little MP3 or that. It looked like a Hamite, might be a J, I don't know. It says, "I want problems always." That's the spirit that Esau's in. He always wants a problem, man. He wants these people to rebel. He wants a crisis so that he can use that to enact his emergency powers, right? It says how this may affect farms. The requirement for post MT is based on areas testing intervals rather than variations in the. That's going into it. That's going into something else, man. I'm not gonna read all of that. It says here, you must test your cattle for tuberculosis at least once every 6 months if your herd is in the high risk area, right? So areas where they have a higher um, uh, testing for tuberculosis or positive testing for tuberculosis. Once a year or once every 6 months if your herd is in the edge area. Once every 4 years if your herd is in the low risk area. Now this all seems to be good, right? But these same powers they're gonna use and abuse when they're ready to implement, what they want to do. It says Deuteronomy 32 and 33, the wine is a poison of dragons and a cruel venom of asps, right? And when you go into asp is a snake, which which is synonymous, sorry, Salakia, for Esau Edom. It says here emergency powers for war. I googled. It says it contains clauses giving the government wide powers to create defense regulations by order in council. So again, a bunch of small dick Edomites, in a small dark room, conjuring up their demons, talking with their demons, and then coming and then making laws that's gonna affect you in a worse way. These regulations governed almost every aspect of everyday life during the war. Two offenses, again, were punishable with death. So you got to think when all this stuff is kicking off, right? They can enact them laws, and even the scriptures talk about guillotines in that day. So they'll be able to enact all kinds of laws once they have a big enough crisis. Jeremiah 6 and 23, they shall lay hold on bow and spear. They are cruel and have no mercy. Their voice roareth like the sea, and they ride upon horses, that their tanks, their vehicles, their planes, set in array as men for war against thee, O daughter of Zion. Because ultimately this is for Jake. Esau don't really care about his own people. All these other nations are people. What he wants to do is he wants to subdue Jake, and he wants to be the premier nation of people, which is never gonna happen because he's a base man. This man he just wants beef 24/7. He won't allow you to live in peace because once you have that peace, you have that level of stability. You're calm. This man he wants you frazzled. He always wants you in a state of moving to and fro so that he can basically manipulate you. Because once you're not stable, you're easily manipulated. A stable. This is why the Lord talks about having a stable mind. Being on one accord. This is all things to do. This is a manly thing. This is all about order. you know. And Esau, he pretty much is the woman of the world, right? He likes chaos, you know. Brothers talk about agents of chaos, and this is Esau, man. He's in the spirit of a woman. The contemporary discussion of emergency powers began in 2001 following the September 11th attacks against the United States, when states of emergency were declared by America and several other nations, ushering ushering in the war on terror. This period reinvigorated academic debates about the limits of executive discretion, coinciding coincidentally with the rehabilitation in the Anglosphere of one particular infamous scholar, Carl Schmitt. Schmitt's work, which focuses on the role of emergency powers during the Weimar Republic and National Socialist eras or the German state 1918 to 1945, this war period, has had an undue influence on the entire problem of emergency and prerogative governance. His writings grappled with the problem of the emergency and the idea of the exception, theorizing the role of dictatorship, the idea of sovereignty, and what he abstractly called the political. Given the forcefulness of his critique of liberalism as well as his status in the canon of contemporary political philosophy, it is through Schmitt that discussions of emergency powers are often approached even today. So this guy is writing about the goods and bads of these emergency powers, right? But you know Esau. Esau's gonna take one thing and he's gonna just run with it. He's gonna take something good and create something bad out of it. You know, he's gonna take something bad and create something worse. This final scripture, and I'm going to close out with this. This is Jeremiah 13 and 14. All thy lovers have forgotten thee, they seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one. And who's that cruel one? Esau Edom, man. Not in, as much as the other nations are cruel, man, no one's as cruel as Esau, man. He's the basest man on earth. For the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. So as much as this hurts us, we have to sit there and kind of take accountability for the fact that we created the situation. You know, we sinned against the Lord, and we created, you know, the circumstances where Esau Edom can kind of lord over us. But ultimately, is you know, it's for our good. So we have to remember that, you know, Lord willing, we're of that number. But you know, all this stuff that's coming on us, you know, is our fault, and really it's to better us. So we just have to keep that in mind, so that we can deal with it with a stable mind, rather than these people who are bugging out and think they can grab a few placards and go up to the House of Parliament or run and riot in the street, and they think Esau's going to listen to that. He wants you to do that so that he can enable these emergency powers. This is what he does. He boxes you into a corner so that you can fight back, so that he can justify himself against you, because he's the accuser of thy brethren. You know, it's like when you poke somebody and then they react, and you be like, "Oh, he assaulted me." This is what Esau does, man. This is his whole mo. You know, yeah. Tawada to the brother Tawada. You know, that gave me the inspiration to do this video. Lord willing, this video was edifying. All praises to the Most High Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, double honors to the elders and apostles of Jeremiah, well, and likewise elders. Shalom to the hopeful elect.